Todd Howard recently participated in the kind of event you only ever get to see during E3. It was an interview that also included Elon Musk. By now I am sure you've had a chance to see some of Todd's comments from the interview, but in this video I will be discussing the following statement regarding Helium-3 being used as an energy source for the spaceships in Starfield.
Speaking of uncharted territory, you mentioned Starfield, which we haven't seen much on, Todd, besides one little trailer last year, but obviously space is going to be a part of that. I'm curious, I don't know how much you can tell us about the game, but I should ask, what can you tell us about Starfield?
I do not have a clip. No, sorry. Everyone needs to be patient on that. But what I can say is how we approach it, so it feels. It's a game, but it still has an authenticity to. Okay, this could happen. Yep. We talked what kind of fuel do the ships use? We're using Helium-3, which we can debate whether that's a good power source for spaceships.
This is particularly exciting to me, as it, along with some of the other comments Todd made in this interview, which I will cover in another video, indicates the level of realism Bethesda is trying to achieve in Starfield. Now, before we get into specifics, Todd Howard did confirm that they will gamify many of these elements so that the game is fun to play. However, the main point is that there are real-life explanations for how these ships are traversing the galaxy, and they are rooted in, at least, real scientific theories, which are more or less accepted as fact. The reason Helium-3 is interesting as a power source is twofold. First, to generate power from Helium-3, like all other nuclear fusion reactions, Helium-3 atoms are fused together and as a result, generate energy. The difference between Helium-3 and your typical nuclear fusion reactions that we currently utilize is that when Helium-3 atoms are fused together, they generate tremendous amounts of energy and do not emit any radiation. You can imagine how a power source like this would be valuable in the future, as the main drawback of nuclear power is the potential for radiation leakage into the environment. This leads us to the second reason why Helium-3 is an interesting choice. It is nearly non-existent on Earth. There are a few places in our solar system that we can readily extract Helium-3 from, and the closest one is on the surface of the Moon. Mining Helium-3 on the Moon would still be quite an effort and would require a massive mining operation be developed, but due to the extremely low gravity on the Moon, this undertaking, once all the equipment was shipped and set up on the Moon, wouldn't be impossible by any stretch. Todd Howard confirmed that the game is set far in the future, so a moon base serving as an airport of sorts, complete with the ability to refuel, seems like it could be a core component of the game, at least at the start. The main reason a moon base is something that is always speculated about in real life is because the moon lacks an atmosphere. Therefore, taking off and starting missions from there versus from Earth is comparatively child's play. If we ever do get to a point where space exploration is somewhat common, I postulate that it will be from the moon, with launches to the moon being like airplanes now. You have to congregate with many other people to get there rather cheaply, but once on the moon, you can potentially have your own ship. This would open up an entire construction industry on top of mining for fuel on the moon, not to mention tourism. So if this is the future that Starfield takes place in, it is mostly rooted in what many experts believe will ultimately happen should we continue on our current path. Another option for mining Helium-3 is from gas giants, which supposedly have way more than the moon, but it is incredibly harder to extract. Knowing the game is set in the far future, perhaps one of the ways Bethesda is gamifying Starfield will be to make gas giants an easy source of fuel. You just have to get there and there is some kind of probe or something you can deploy to collect the Helium-3 needed for the player to continue on their journey. Drawbacks of Helium-3 are that it takes even more heat to fuse atoms than what we can currently reliably produce, and the resulting reactions we'd get from other materials in the process may produce radiation, but we don't really know. This is, I assume, what Todd Howard meant when saying you can argue whether or not it is a good idea to use this as fuel in space. I am assuming he has simply hand-waved this away by having this be a safe process in the future. The reality is that right now nuclear fusion is the short-term solution to power in space. Helium-3 as a fuel doesn't emit radiation, which is the biggest reason why we shy away from using nuclear more. If you've seen the movie Moon, released in 2009, the main character on that mining facility was extracting Helium-3 to send back to Earth. It is a great movie, and it could tie in a bit to Starfield and how Helium-3 may be extracted on one part of the moon to be used for a spaceport refueling station elsewhere. Anyway, this news is incredibly exciting for me because, as you are all aware if you've been watching any of my Starfield videos, it cements the idea that Starfield is going for a much more realistic tone than most science fiction we see today. The mere fact that Todd Howard is mentioning Helium-3 means that this will very likely be a major resource that must be farmed or traded for. Before setting off and exploring, I can imagine that we have to chart a course to ensure we will have access to more Helium-3 wherever we end up. There are so many possibilities, but all of them are exciting, and my hype for Starfield continues to grow, if that is even possible. Next video, we will discuss more of Todd Howard's comments related to Starfield. There's a lot to draw on, and I imagine that this interview with Elon Musk will provide the last details we get about Starfield for quite some time, possibly until next year's E3. The idea that Bethesda conferred with SpaceX and Elon Musk in regard to future technologies and what was theoretically possible for Starfield is great news for those of us that were wanting a game that is somewhat grounded compared to the normal fare we see these days. Bring it on. Are you more or less excited to play Starfield now? Does a realistic tone to the game make you want to play it more? Let's discuss in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, maybe click that bell icon, and as always, thank you so much for watching.